First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rcha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 1. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God. And the your foot here, it's not literally talking about your actual feet, but it's representing your manner of conduct, right? And how you move and what you do and say when you go to the house of God. Now, literally speaking, this is in reference to when you go before the Lord, right, to his temple, and be more ready to hear than to give, the sacrifice of fools. Meaning that, you have to, if you go there, you have to be attentive, right? You have to watch what you say and what you do, so that if you're there to offer a sacrifice, if you're there to complete a vow, if you're there to, give an offering, right, or even make prayers, whatever way you're instructed to do it, you do it the right way, lest you transgress out of, ignorance. And as it says, to give the sacrifice of fools, because then whatever sacrifice you bring there, you might offer it incorrectly, right, or you might miss a part, and you don't want to do that. For they consider not that they do evil, because that'll be a transgression against the Lord. Now, spiritually, right, just as you would behave yourself when you were in the temple or in the house of the Lord is likened his prophets, right, or as people will call today, camps, those that are teaching his correct word, onto, like in different altars, right, in this place. And so the Spirit of the Lord dwells there with us, right? The scriptures say, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst thereof. So when you come up to the camp or the company of the prophets, that's also likened to a degree of going to the house of the Lord, because we're offering a sacrifice unto the Lord as well with our righteous acts, and then speaking in his name and following what he has commanded us to do. So you want to also be careful when you come up with what you say and how you move, and be more ready to hear, because you might be offering the sacrifice of fools. You may make a fool out of yourself, and that's all being watched in the heavens as well, right? And how you conduct yourself. And as it says, for they consider not that they do evil, and that's the worst part about it, because it's still evil, right? It's still a transgression, even though you may not be considering that, and you don't want to, end up in a situation like that. So, see the subheading, your attitude toward God. You want to make sure that you're blameless as best as you can. Verse 2, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. See, so when you pray or when you're in the presence of the Lord, be very careful what you say. Don't go and make a foolish vow, right? For example, what Jephthah did, and the Lord required it because he made that vow and he had to keep it, even though he had to end up sacrificing his daughter. So you want to be careful. Don't be rash. Don't be quick to speak and, just utter out anything, especially before the Lord. For God is in heaven and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few. So whatever it is, that you need or you're trying to say, and the Lord gives you an audience, you want to make sure that you're very specific, number one, in what you say to the Lord, and that you mean it, because you might go and say something rashly, and then unfortunately find out that the Lord is not doing take backs. So let me get a couple of precepts here on this. Let's go to Sirach chapter 7, verse 14. It says here, right, use not many words in a multitude of elders, and make not much babbling when thou prayest, right? Because as we just read, for God is in heaven and thou upon earth, let thy words be few. Because the more words you speak, the more likely you are to say something that is not right. Okay, when you try to talk too much. It says here, Ecclesiastes 32:9, if thou be among great men, make not thyself equal with them. And when ancient men are in place, use not many words. So if this applies to ancient men or elders or great men, how much more for the Most High? For a dream cometh through the multitude of busyness. Yeah, and a fool's voice is known by multitude of words. Okay, so somebody talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. Eventually, you start to hear more about how this person actually thinks, and you're like, wow, this person is actually not that wise. They're actually quite foolish, because you start to hear more of the way they reason and the things they say, and it's not comprehending much in few words. It's babbling over and over and over without really saying much. And that's the problem. That's what you want to avoid. NLT says too much activity gives you restless dreams. Too many words make you a fool. And in the Apocrypha, I believe it's also in Sirach, it mentions that even a fool, when he keepeth or when he holdeth his tongue, which is to shut his mouth, is considered wise. There's a quote actually, fool. There you go. Yeah, so the phrase is, it is better to remain silent and to be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. Okay, that is to say that somebody may think that you are a fool, but if you're quiet, that's just their speculation. But when you speak and you are speaking foolishness or folly, you remove all doubt. You fully confirm for them, yeah, this guy's definitely a fool. So it says here, verse, where we at? Yeah, verse 4. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it. So when you take an oath or you vow something to the Lord, make sure you keep it. For he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. And that's why he said in fools, because going back to the point that was being made here, that's why you were being warned not to be rash with your mouth, right? Not to give a fool sacrifice. That includes an oath that is made out of, made rashly, because you have to keep it. And if you defer to pay it because you're like, oh, I didn't mean it, or what, the Lord is not, he's not playing that. So you got to pay the vow which you have vowed. That's why you want to be very careful, what you vow to the Lord, what you say, and and what you do when it comes to the presence of the Lord. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. That's a foolish thing to do. You're better off not vowing at all. And that's something to also be cautious about, even, out of the context of vowing to the Lord. Just either giving your word to somebody, or committing to something before you're fully sure of it. It's better that you don't even give the green light than to say something and then have people, make plans or whatever around it, and then have to backtrack and be like, no, or I'm sorry, or that's much worse. Okay. The only difference is here, you can't play that with the Lord. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. See, because of what you said with your mouth to vow, now you can't keep the vow, and now you're causing your flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of thine hands? And I'll read this in the NLT, because as it says here, the angel, it's more in reference to the messenger, right? And as it says here in the NLT, don't let your mouth make you sin, and don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger, which is a priest, that the promise you made was a mistake. That would make God angry, and he might wipe out everything you have achieved. You see? Because, you're not, if you take a vow, it's not like you're going to go and you go into the temple and immediately you see like this, one of the archangels is standing there and you're going to talk to him. But the point that Solomon is saying here, which lines up with everything he's been saying up until this verse, is you want to be careful with what you say. It all goes back to keeping your foot and not being rash with your mouth. For in the multitude of dreams and many words, there are also diverse vanities, but fear thou God. It says here, talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. Fear God instead. NIV, much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear the Lord. Because sometimes you have dreams and it's not every dream that means something, right? It's not every dream that's a vision. It's not every dream that's, a prophecy. Sometimes you just have dreams and they're just that, okay? But he likens here, just like you have dreams that are just dreams, and sometimes you have people that use many words and they don't really say much, and it's all just vain. Instead, just focus on fearing the Lord, because when you fear the Lord, what does that come with? Wisdom. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. Meaning, if you see, wickedness transpiring in a province, right? You see justice being perverted, crooked cops and bribery and all of that. Don't be shocked, right? Because one, he that is higher than the highest regardeth, right? So in the one sense, who is higher than the highest? The Most High. So he's already seen it. He's going to take action on it. But also, as it says, and there be higher than they, because if you're seeing judgment being perverted from, let's say, the police, right, or law enforcement, but then you go up a level and the courtrooms are like that, don't be surprised, because those that are higher up than them are already aware of it. And most likely this is a systemic issue. Okay, so it's not, don't marvel, because the scriptures tell you as well. Let's see here, judge. So are yeah, Ecclesiastes 10:2. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, much are all they that dwell therein. So the judge is above the officers. So if the officers are corrupt on a systemic level, do you think the judge is not aware of that? Of course he is. But it's going down the pyramid. Verse 9, moreover, the prophet of the earth the prophet of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. It says here, even the king milks the land for his own profit. See, so to a degree, everybody is doing something for themselves, right? They're benefiting. You at, corruption on a low level, but as it goes higher and higher up the ladder, even up to the king, he's also profiting to some degree. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity, right? Because it's like greed. You're gonna continue to desire more, right? Somebody that loves silver, you give them 2 ounces, they're gonna want 4, they're gonna want 8, they're gonna want more, right? And he that loveth abundance with increase, the more that they increase, the more that they want. So he's saying it's vanity, because they can never be satisfied. What's the point? When goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? Okay, and let's read this here in the NLT. It says, the more you have, right, that's when goods are increased. The more you have, the more people come to help you spend it. So what good is wealth, except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers? And you suddenly notice, when you start to have more wealth, you start to have more friends, right? You start to have more helpers to, assist you in how you spend that wealth. All of a sudden, there are a lot more people in your pockets. Verse 12, and it's so Solomon is saying it. It's like, what was the point in getting it? Because now it feels like you just got it just to watch others spend it. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet. Yeah, look, man, you want to know you have some people that complain that they can't go to sleep or they can't fall asleep. Somebody that works very, very hard, like physical labor, and they're constantly working. Trust me, they're one of the least people, unless it's a very severe case, they're one of the last people to have trouble sleeping. If anything, they might have trouble staying awake. But as it says, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, right? When he finally gets to the end of the day to lay on his bed, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. So the laboring man, which is lower than the rich man, whether he eats a lot or little, he's able to sleep well because he doesn't have these problems as the rich. So even though the rich has an abundance, his riches will not suffer him to sleep. As the saying goes, more money, more problems. It says, people who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much, but the rich seldom get a good night's sleep. Seldom means rarely. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely riches kept from the owners thereof to their hurt. He says, there is another serious problem I have seen under the sun. Hoarding riches harms the saver, because eventually, he's saying here, like the one that is continuing to hoard or amass these riches eventually loses it, right? Eventually they suffer loss. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand. It says here, money is put into risky investments that turn sour, and everything is lost. Because in order to save, right, like today, that's what people do, right? You get to a certain amount of money, and then to preserve it, you might invest it to either, hold on to it or to make more. And then you suffer hurt when, as it says, that investment that is turned, risky, right? Or you lose that fortune, and then everything is lost. And then in the end, there is nothing left to pass on to one's children. That's what it means by he begetteth a son, and there's nothing in his hand. So Solomon is describing the things that he has seen and witnessed, that people go through under the earth. And that's why he often mentioned that all is vanity and vexation of spirit, because it's all like running on a hamster wheel. You take 2 steps forward, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Verse 15, and he, as he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, right? So we came onto this earth with nothing. You're going to leave with nothing, right? But your spirit, and shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. So you may have been the richest person on the planet earth, but when you die, you're not taking even 1 cent or dime of those riches with you. Those physical riches, that is. And this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. And what profit hath he that hath labored for the wind? See, because you work very, very hard, what's really going to be the benefit? Because you're not taking it with you. Once you die, that's it. You got to leave everything there. and this too is a very serious problem. People leave this world no better off than when they came. All their hard work is for nothing, like working for the wind. Imagine going into a store and they're like, look, you go into the store, maybe it's a food store or a store of like electronics or all these things. And they're like, look, anything you can put your hands on is yours. You got to keep. And so you go in there, you got maybe 5 hours. And you spend 4 hours and maybe 30 minutes gathering this and gathering that. You're throwing laptops, TVs, video game consoles. You're throwing everything you can get your hands on into your cart. And then 5 hours comes and they tell you, okay, time is up. You got to leave everything here and then go back. So you came into the store with nothing, and now you got to leave the store with nothing. And you spent 4 hours and 30 minutes, gathering all these valuable things just to find out you got only 30 minutes to, even try to have any fun with it, because once time is up and you leave the store, you can't take anything with you. So that's why he's saying, is that not like laboring for the wind? Is that not like working hard for nothing? So in that case, well, you might as well just spend the first hour gathering a few good things and then spend the next 4 hours enjoying those things. And that's why the fear of the Lord is greater than them all, because that is the one thing you can actually leave the store with. If you went into the store, using the store example, right, and you were gathering the TV, the PS5, and all of those things, yeah, you may hook it up, you may play it for a bit, all right, cool. But if you went into the store and you went straight to the book aisle and you found a really, really good book, an insightful book, a book that's like How to Attain Immortality, and then you read it, when you leave the store, as much as you can't leave with anything physically, you are leaving with something more than you came in there with. You're leaving with knowledge, which will always stay with you. So that's how he sort of likens the fear of the Lord. That's why he said that's the conclusion of the whole matter. Because when you die, you don't take anything physically from this world with you back to the spirit world. But as the scriptures tell us in the book of Revelation, that your works, which is the works you've done for the Lord, they follow you. That is the thing you get to leave with, and you will be rewarded with that. So continuing on verse 17, all his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath in his sickness. It says here, throughout their lives they live under a cloud, frustrated, discouraged, and angry, going into the travail that man goes through while being on the earth. Behold, that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it is his portion. See, this is the gift of God. So enjoy it. Going back to the example I gave, spend that 1 hour, gathering a few good things and enjoy it. Enjoy life along the way, because as Solomon is saying here, if you spend your whole life laboring and toiling and so on, you're gonna die, and all that thing, the profit you've made, is not going back with you. Verse 19, every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God. As it is a good thing to receive wealth from God, and the good health to enjoy it, to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God, because then you're content and you can enjoy, the labor of your hands. And at least when you leave, you can feel like, all right, I had a good life, right? I enjoyed living and so on. Now, we know and understand that for us in this time, things are different, because the things we're laboring for is for the next world to come, when we can come back and and enjoy those things. Okay. So our life, here isn't about enjoying technically we will enjoy the labor of our hands, right? And we will rejoice in that. It's just a delayed reward. Verse 20, for he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart. Says here, God keeps such people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. That is to to be worried about things of the past, because they actually took the time to enjoy, the present and the labor of their hands. And that brings us to the end of the book of Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Bracha, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.